to the greatest show that comes out on Tuesdays talking about movies. It is Our Favorites. And today's another very special episode. We have our guest star from last week still joining us here, Mr. Hamilton. How's it going?
I was here last week.
Yeah, buddy.
A week ago.
Woohoo! 2 weeks in a row. Let's do it. Please, if you like him on the show, give us some feedback. If you don't like him on the show,
don't
give
say
us some...
anything.
But I am excited to get into today's episode. Once again, if you haven't heard or seen us before, we talk about a collection of director, actor, genre, anything that we talk about our favorites in said collection. Thank you for doing my hand motions and dancing as I'm woohoo! Because today's a good day. Everybody, we're talking about Scorsese, and that's the right way to pronounce it. None of this Scorsese bull crap. Scorsese.
The man himself says Scorsese.
Yes, that's
he says
how
it
you
very
say.
fast.
Oh yeah, nose is in the air, pinky's out, baby.
Why is that nose is in the air? That's how the man pronounces his name.
It was more about how he said it.
It's not the fact that you're saying the name correctly. It's making such a show of it.
I just had to because I know
show
a
out
lot
of everything.
We had this
I do.
conversation earlier, Jake and I, where we were like, "Oh, I say Scorsese because that's how he says it." He's like, "Oh yeah, okay, I try here and there." It's like,
If the man himself doesn't care, I don't care.
That's valid. I'm just.
What did he tell you that himself?
He's Martin Scorsese. He doesn't care.
No,
He has more money than I can dream.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying this one moment to feel pretentious, and then it's just gonna go away.
Just this one moment?
Oh,
Yeah.
No!
Hold on. Dickey, what color is the moonlight?
it's hard
That's
to be
an inside joke.
Wouldn't you say it's hard to be pretentious if you didn't watch the movies?
Not even his own picks.
All right, okay, let's ease up on the roast a little bit there.
Let's
But-
hope he remembers what his pick is.
Of course I remember. Are we?
Start with Jake.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So let's get into this. Jake, we're doing Scorsese movies. Which one is your favorite?
So, my favorite, I was thinking about why it's my favorite. And I think it's my favorite because it's just the one that is the most separated from its marketing from my perspective, in that it was marketed to be a very horror-ish film. And it is much more of a, let's say, a murder mystery type thriller.
Neo-noir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's Shutter Island. This movie took me by surprise with how good it is, how not horror-ish it is, really. I don't know, there's something about that noir vibe that just clicks with me. And I just really latch onto it. Of course, Leonardo DiCaprio's good in it. Mark Ruffalo is
Mark Ruffalo. Hey, Teddy. We're marshals, right? That's basically his whole performance.
That's pretty much
Sometimes he
it,
says
yeah.
boss.
Hey, boss.
Hey, boss. Hey, boss.
We're going to Shutter Island.
How we gonna get off in this storm, man? I like the movie. I've said in my second watch, or my third watch now, I guess, to these two, that I see more of the flaws in it.
See the cracks?
See the cracks in its armor, I believe is what I said. And it does grind to a halt in the after he finds what's her name? Rose 2? Is that her name? It's literally something 2, whatever.
Rachel
2. It just, for some reason, it just stops when it has momentum, and I think that hurts it a little bit. But other than that, it's a pleasant, I don't know, pleasant, but it is a pleasant surprise compared to its marketing.
Wasn't it moderately well reviewed too? I think, if I remember correctly.
Have you seen it?
I have seen again bits and pieces of it. Like I was watching.
Do you know the twist?
I know there's a massive twist in it, but
do you know the twist?
Do you know
if
it?
There is a twist.
I have not seen.
Do you know the
part
twist
of the
on the twist?
No, and I know it's a big mind trip.
Do you want us to ruin it for you?
I
mean, you could have just watched it.
It's really not even that long.
I know it's
no,
not.
Actually, it is long.
Is it?
138 minutes.
It's pretty long.
That's almost as long as Come and See.
It's much longer than it should be. That was something that I felt on my rewatch.
That's probably.
I got to the cave that you're talking about. I know you said it grinds to a halt, but I remember I got there and my partner came up. So I paused it for like a second and I looked. And I was like, oh my goodness, there is like almost an hour left.
Yep.
I'm gonna say, well, it's like
If they'd have just gone right to the lighthouse from the cave, sorry.
No, you're good.
If they'd have just gone right to the lighthouse from the cave, I feel like that would have worked better.
There's a little bit of meandering.
From the cave to the lighthouse.
Like the scene where he's kind of running around and then Max von Sydow is going to try to like sedate him and he just like pushes him
I don't
over.
understand why that needed to be there.
There seems to be some fat on the bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to really try to sell it to
This is
Go ahead.
How much do you mind if I actually
go ahead? Well, because at this point,
we're gonna have to.
I feel like the majority of people that are watching this, that Treasure Island is old enough that if you haven't seen it,
it's your own.
Oh, it's not there. I'm not mad at them. For not
well, no, I could care less about me because whatever. You know.
Anyway,
Same.
so I think it's done to sell the idea that this place is trying to. It's trying to fake away from the twist, which undercuts the twist kind of and distracts from like the point of the movie. But I do. So this is going to reveal a bit of my personal life. My wife recently, a couple of years ago, had some mental health issues. And it's really interesting the way that I connect to this because they were very similar to what's his name? Teddy's mental breakdown. And just watching, I watched this kind of with my wife, like she was in and out for bits and pieces because it wasn't really her thing. But like the parts where they're putting together his memory and then there's a piece of it here, but it's in the wrong place and it's jumbled and stuff. It's like, that's kind of how I felt during that. And I was like, I can see that. And even now it's like a fog for like, she can't remember the time when she was in that part of her life. So it's, I guess, engaging for me in that way. And Ben Kingsley is, no pun intended, the king.
Why are you all wet,
does.
baby?
Yep.
He always brings a good amount of
Dude,
just energy to all of his roles.
It's so fun. Are we just full spoilers?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are? Okay. So
Really, if you haven't seen this, go and watch it and then come back if you care about it.
Dickey's out of here.
Yep.
He's going to go watch the movie in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
That is now Dickey's screening room.
So
We strap him to a chair, Clockwork Orange style.
Oh, don't be that hard on him.
the film on the rewatch is interesting. I hadn't seen it in a number of years. I think it probably been about 7 years since I had seen the film. This is only my second time seeing it. This is easily, I know it's technically 2010.
I was wondering how long ago this came out. I feel like I remember.
But it has a very distinct feeling of his 2000s catalog, Scorsese, I mean, which is my least favorite Scorsese era. He's like one of my favorite, probably my favorite director, but I don't love that little era. So I hadn't revisited it in a while, and knowing the twist, I don't know.
It feels a bit more obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is like sometimes I didn't feel, sometimes you know a twist when you go into a movie and you like notice things and it's like rewarding. I didn't feel rewarded on the rewatch. It kind of just felt like it was there. If that makes sense.
So like the clues that were in the background didn't feel like they were adding anything to it.
It felt a little bit more like an M. Night Shyamalan movie this time to me.
Interesting.
Not quite that bad.
I was gonna say that's a tough remark.
Twist wise.
Yeah. And I still think that the twist is effective just by how it plays out and then what happens after the twist.
Yes.
But you're right. I think it is a bit more obvious with the conversation with the dude in the tower or the castle, whatever it is. What's it called? Ward D or something like that.
Yeah.
When he's talking to Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that type of stuff is a little bit more obvious in like how he's acting. And I just, like I said, I noticed the flaws a bit more.
It's still fun. Like you said, I think when they reveal the twist, notice my vagueness still.
Which really quick, let me just take a guess because I think I know what it was. Like, wasn't he trying to visit the island? Then he was actually a prisoner of the island or something like that.
It's a very one note way of looking at it, but
Patient.
Okay,
That's from the movie.
but is that correct or no?
Kind of.
Okay.
Do you want me to
That's-
just? Do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah.
So the whole movie is predicated on he's a U.S. Marshal
Mhm.
that goes to this island to investigate the disappearance of Rachel.
I remember because I watched the trailers for this so many times. I've seen so many clips of it.
Is that when the guy's like, Shutter Island?
Yeah, that's exactly what
And
I remember that.
throughout the course of this movie, he and Mark Ruffalo are investigating this disappearance,
Mhm.
and he is remembering times with his wife who is dead. And they go through this whole thing
Kind of like Inception.
a little bit.
Apartment building caught on fire
Yeah. Okay.
is why she died in the fire.
Yes. And then, no, she didn't die in the fire.
No, keep going.
Okay. And then as you get closer and closer to the end, you start to see that he is a patient
Mhm.
and he is being allowed this last delusion of grandeur
It's like an elaborate role.
to make him
To bring him back.
to reconcile him with what actually happened, which is that his wife burned down their apartment, so they moved out to a lake. She then went crazy and killed his kids,
Drowned them.
and then he shot her.
I see.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That is rough.
That ties the movie together very well, though. That's
So,
kind of what keeps
Last like
it
10,
up.
15 are really
Mhm.
I
good.
think I mean, the first time I watched it, I didn't love it either. I was like, yeah.
It kind of feels clunky when you first watch it, I
Yeah.
think.
And then the second time, knowing everything, I just felt like I was like waiting for them to then do it. And it's like, oh, there's 2 hours
Mhm.
for this part. But then, yeah, the tail end there really drives it.
Oh yeah. And then so after they reveal this and he seemingly is brought back,
Mm-hmm.
it reconciles with it and everything. It was this whole thing that predicated that the facility itself was predicated on him accepting this for it to stay open. For some reason that's never really explained.
I don't think it's for
Interesting.
them to stay open. I think it's he's gonna be lobotomized.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Is it just that?
It's his
Okay.
their last chance to
To get
bring him
him.
back. Otherwise, he's going to be lobotomized.
Oh yeah, because he's a war hero and they valued him for some reason.
Yeah, they didn't want to give up on him because that wasn't their philosophy. But if he wasn't going to come through this time, it was like, you've done this too many times. Because they mentioned in the end, and we've done this with you before, and you got to this stage here before where you were kind of coming to terms with it.
And then
we
he
need-
relapsed.
We need to know if you're not going to really relapse, and then
Yeah, and then
There's
so
something that I just watched recently that's very of a similar
It's
plot
kind
and
of a
character
trope.
thing, and that's
There's a
I'm
lot
trying to
of
remember
these
what I exactly was
psychological
watching,
things.
but it was
yeah. It's so and then at the tail end, after he has, pulled himself back and reconciled with the fact that he did kill his wife and she
Mhm.
did kill their children. The end is Mark Ruffalo coming up to him and Leonardo DiCaprio says something to him that indicates to Ruffalo's character that he has relapsed.
Yeah.
But the heavy implication is that he chose that because it was
Interesting.
too much weight
What's
to
the
live.
line? It's better to
Better
die a good man than to live as a monster.
yeah, very long.
Interesting. Because I feel like when I look at Scorsese, I feel like he's really good at like creating like relationships with characters and that kind of stuff. And I don't peg him as like a mind trippy kind of filmmaker. And so it's interesting for him to take on that kind of plot.
Kind of him dipping his feet in different waters.
'Cause I wanna
in
see-
that decade.
Because I like, and I know this is more of a mind trip thriller. I want to see like a horror movie.
Well, that was again when it was kind of
I
marketed.
remember because I
That's
know
what
a lot of my
Focus mentioned
a lot of my
earlier.
friends at the time when
Was
they
Hugo
went
in
to
that?
go see it.
Was Hugo in that decade too?
2012. So
2011.
It was,
So,
11. So it was after Shutter Island.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, kind of.
Technically speaking, Shutter Island is a 2010 Scorsese, but if you want to be like in the canon of it, it fits neatly in the 2000s catalog than the 2010 catalog.
That's
If you
fair.
want to be that guy, which I'm going to be that guy.
Which even Hugo, for how good it is, does
Hugo's
kind of feel similar. It's kind of like
Hugo
the
kinda
bridge.
feels like it's own little deal.
Because
What-
Wolf of Wall Street is kind of the beginning of that 2010 Scorsese thing.
The three.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Like,
just
I know.
gonna say that
Those three.
you were saying that this is him dipping his toes into other waters. Hugo sort of feels
Yeah.
like that to me too.
It's a big jump. It's interesting. Again, another deaf ear little comparison. But it reminds me of Ingmar Bergman.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah.
But he had one I think because Max von Sydow's in this too, and he's
Shido is how you say it?
that's how I've always said it.
Okay.
I've been saying it wrong my entire life then.
I
Thank
don't
you
know.
for...
Don't-
Oh, okay.
Don't quote me on that one. Quote me on Scorsese. Don't quote me on Max.
Maximilian.
But that's why I thought when I was watching it, because this is the only film that you could call horror film from Scorsese.
Yeah.
There's also Bergman had one horror film, which was Hour of the Wolf, also had Max von Sydow in it. So it was very much him trying.
Is that the only one he was in for Bergman?
Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
You suck. But it's him definitely playing with genre that he hadn't.
I want to see him do it again. Like I know he's getting up there, and he just made a new thing with Leo, or maybe I don't remember if Leo dropped out or not.
Comes out next year.
He's on
Yeah,
it.
the flowers.
Killer of Flower Moon.
Yeah, like I come on. And Netflix just gave him a lot of money for that. Can Netflix give him a lot of money to make another like horror
They said
movie?
no more vanity projects.
Oh, that's true. They did because they're broke.
Disgusting way to word it. But
Yeah, but I just because I want to see. I want him to do more like crazy stuff like that. Like it's.
Yes,
No.
Jake.
No more vanity projects. Releases Kissing Booth
yeah, let's not.
3.
4. There's already 3.
It's already
I
3.
Don't
Let's
forget.
not
Don't
release
forget
one of the
their.
best movies we've ever released, and let's keep shoving out these YA movies. But it's
And,
fine.
and don't forget their, I don't know if you guys saw this pop up on the front page of Netflix, How to Build a Sex Room. So they're putting out some
You know,
really
That is
interesting.
not on my
You know,
Netflix
I
For
do
You
believe
page.
those go based off what you watch.
It said it was trending. I'm like, huh.
Trending for people like you.
Yeah, I
swing.
the
Oh no, honey,
the most
get off that.
I would say that the hardest thing on my Netflix right now is Bridgerton. So
Fair enough. Okay. Anything else about Shutter Island before we move on to the next
Hey,
pick?
Jared, you have anything to say on Shutter Island at all?
I've been talking this whole time.
I think putting some input in.
I talk.
he's talking now.
Wow, I feel I
It's your turn now, buddy.
I don't even want to look at him right now. Oh, is it my turn now?
Well, I was gonna say, do we want to do a circle? Do we want to save Hammy for last again, or do you want to let him? Let's actually, Hammy,
Yeah.
it's your turn.
No, let's save
Let's
Hammy
go
for
this
last.
way.
Oh, we're going
Let's
to
save
me?
Hammy for last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get to go next then. All right.
Oh, good.
Listen. Okay. I know I picked. Okay. There's a very select cliche amount of movies when you can look at what your favorite Scorsese movie is, and I'm
Well,
going
when
to
you've
pick.
barely seen any, of course it's gonna be cliche.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you say this is a cliche. It is the cliche.
Yes, it absolutely is. But
It is the thing that made the thing.
if you
cliche.
couldn't pick up on what I was throwing down, it is Goodfellas, because this is one of the first ones that I watched. I think it was on my list of things to watch going into college, like going into Grand Valley for film and video. Sorry, what was that, Jerry? You want to say that a little louder?
Say it louder. Say it louder.
Say it louder, bud. What were you
I
saying?
went short list.
Okay, fair.
Sorry,
But
sorry.
it,
Requisite list.
it was, but like, and I wanted to get it in, and it was.
Wait. Was there actually a prerequisite?
It wasn't a prerequisite, but it was like just
you didn't watch this in high school yet? Loser.
It
Watch
was.
it before this class,
Yeah.
or we will bully you.
Yeah,
To be
these
fair-
guys are so cool.
To be fair, I didn't watch this movie until Monday.
Never
Really interesting. Okay, so
Hot take. I don't like it.
Oh, okay.
Buddy recognizes it as great.
Okay, well, because I was gonna say I don't know if I want to get into my opinions or I want to hear as to why you don't like
Let's
it
hear yours
first. Okay,
Yeah.
so
It's the juxtaposition.
It is your pick.
it is my pick, yes, and I just think that all your classic Scorsese-isms, he does really well in this. Joe Pesci is probably my absolute favorite character in this because he's just a fast-talking wise ass, and
Guy.
wise guy.
Hey.
He's a piece of crap in that movie.
He is, and I just
I want to be him.
he is just so entertaining, and I just
Just like him, right?
he's just like him.
Just one kid once it says F you. What's the term? Murked him? Was it Spider? Was it Spider as a kid?
Yeah, he murked Spider.
Yeah, but it's
Spider.
like I look at stuff like that, and it's gonna be a very small detail that I feel like not a lot of people are going to care about. So this is one of the really stupid things that should not be something that I love about the movie. The way they cut the garlic. Okay?
I knew you were going to say the garlic. I should have said my bit first. I was like, I should say the garlic right now because I know he's going to say it. And I didn't say it.
Like, I can't.
You know how many reviews on Letterboxd say, man, the way they cut that garlic.
I know everyone's like, the garlic. With the razor.
It thin.
Dickey,
I know,
Dickey,
but when you cook it, like, listen, okay, if for anybody that doesn't know this, I'm really into like home cooking. What?
Where's our dinner with Dickey?
Listen,
Dinner with Dickey.
I don't want to plug this right now, but am I plugging it?
Instagram
Are we plugging it?
And you? Just like you killed
I posted
killing his Instagram.
Okay.
I'm gonna shove garlic in you.
Okay, listen. Let's reel this all back, and I'm going to touch that on later because that's a lie.
Turkey.
That is very disturbing that you want to put garlic inside of me. But really quick to give context to our listeners who have no clue what's going on. I did in fact start an Instagram called Dinner with Dickey.
I thought this was a movie podcast.
This is a movie podcast, but these yahoos are talking about this, so I gotta tell everybody now. They're making fun of me for my Instagram, which I only
stand below to get back to the movie talk.
Listen, anybody that listens to this know that we go
you
off.
have to listen.
Know that we go off rails all the time. This is what you just get into.
This is what you get when you put Jared and Dickey in a room.
It absolutely is. So I don't even know where I was going with this.
Something
what's
about
the whole
garlic.
point of it? Yes.
Keep going.
It all comes down to this. You are basic.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Who else has
Admitting
thought?
it is the first step.
Is that a bad thing? No.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. I just wanted to see what you say.
I was going to say, come at me.
You can be basic. I just won't respect you.
Or talk to you.
I mean, you clearly talked to him, so.
This was funnier.
Oh, of course.
I just won't talk. I just won't respect you.
But yeah, I don't even know where I was going anymore.
Cutting the garlic in jail.
Yes, I just.
No one's ever talked about that before.
Oh no, no one's ever talked about
that.
that.
It melted the sauce.
It's just it's a small thing that I just really liked. But no, in this movie, like I said, I don't even know where to go on anymore. So, Jake, why do you not like this?
Okay, I'm going to preface this with saying I know everybody loves this. I see why everybody loves this.
I don't love it.
Okay, these two love it.
Mm-hmm.
I see why they love it. I love Robert De Niro and I love Joe Pesci. Why does he always have to be the same character though?
Typecast.
Because he's typecast and he's just. I love just like he has that voice, like it's just high and nasally enough where if he really gets
know something about high and nasal.
Interesting.
So I'm going to recognize I love Joe Pesci, love Robert De Niro.
Ray Liotta.
There you
Ray
go.
Liotta.
That's his name.
Rest in peace.
Oh my god, I forgot.
And Paul Sorvino. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And I recognize that this is a lot of the reason why
Wait, what?
the cliches exist, except for maybe The Godfather and maybe a couple earlier ones. This is 1990, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
But mob movies don't click with me. They just don't. It always feels to me like it's always, oh yeah, we had the high life. Now we're getting into drugs. Now we're caught. And the Godfather, well, with very few exceptions, like The Godfather, Casino, although I haven't watched it in
Married to the Mob.
20 years.
I don't like that movie.
And The Irishman, they just don't work for me. Although I will say
The
that
Irishman's different.
yes,
much
that's
different.
not really a mob. It is, but it
it's
isn't.
like
It is.
it's a
different.
age.
And Joe Pesci doesn't play the same character in that one. Too.
I believe that's wonderful.
I love Joe Pesci in The Irishman. I think he's fantastic in it.
It's funny though because I do love Joe Pesci in this as well. So I don't know. I just it doesn't click with me, but I respect it. But that ending is, as I said in reviewing it on Letterboxd, it is the best way to reframe a movie and not pull the rug out from underneath.
It's that look he gives us when he's getting the paper in witness protection. I think I brought that up to you after we watched it, where he like looks at you, and part of the look is like this like smarmy happiness, but also there's like this big amount of sadness. It's just pathetic.
Bitter.
It's bitter.
Bitter's a good
I was more specifically referring to when it makes the turn where the entire thing was told from the witness, from the stand, where he stops
Oh,
and
he
walks towards the
walks out.
camera. That's specifically what I was talking about. But you're right, that too.
I just on this rewatch, because this is only the second time I've seen it, and that shot is just of him looking at us. It's just like I'm feeling so many different emotions right now. It's mostly just like a little bit of pity, but mostly just like, that's about right.
That's what I love the most about it, is that you feel like he's like a piece of crap, but like you still feel like there's there's enough pity. Sorry, what?
The opening where they're driving out to bury the one
Barry Bats.
Yep.
Billy Bear.
Which also the way they lit that scene, it gives me so many good feelings.
I don't even care about the way they lit it. It's just I don't know what's so funny about it, but it just made me laugh.
Yeah, I can see it. I feel like I can see where that's coming from.
Like there's enough snark in the movie to make it funny.
Is funny. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very funny movie.
It is. And I really quick, I mentioned the lighting for that scene, and I just coming from somebody that has worked a lot at trying to become a director of photography. I love the way that it blends just stylistic with realism so flippin' well. And
it was shot by Richardson, right?
Probably that checks out.
Who else?
Yeah.
Well, he changed DPs in this newer era.
Who was it?
Yeah, Ballhaus.
Okay.
Who's done a lot?
He has a couple people that he kind of.
It's Goodfellas is no Wild Wild West though.
But yeah, Jared and Hammy, how do you guys feel about this?
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And every time I watch it, I like it more. Before I even get on to that whole can of worms, I think one of the big things, because you mentioned how they all kind of feel like, oh, it's like, here's the highlight, here's the drugs, now it's bad. I think a big distinction to make is that this was kind of the movie to do that. At the time, this was a big revisionist movie for the gangster movie, because The Godfather is obviously the big one, which is one of the greatest American films ever made. But it's not critical of the mob life at all. It glorifies it incredibly, and it's because there's mob interference with that film. This was kind of the first big one, heavily lauded one, that was very critical of it. It was from the perspective of just like a low-life gangster. It was not like a big shot. And after this movie is when they all kind of did the same thing. It was a huge phenomenon, obviously. It's Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. And it became a cliche. And I think in some degrees, it becoming that cliche can kind of null the experience a bit.
Are you saying that the movie being the cliche and me waiting so long to have seen it may have dulled?
It might have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to anyone's fault. It's not to yours. Or
yeah,
it's just the nature of culture.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not like it's a bad movie. It's it just doesn't click with me.
And I can see it potentially for, depending on when you watch it, I think is now, with it being such a big cultural landmark, is important. Because I watched it, I was in high school. And so,
me too.
Huge formative movie for me as a movie watcher, which I think a lot of people experience this film. And I remember when I watched it the first time, it's not that I didn't like it, but I felt like garbage at the end of the film, which I know is a sentiment that Jared shares. I know, the drug stuff at the end it's ugh. Yeah. Minus the George Harrison needle drop. It's not fun. And I remember when I finished them, I was like, I don't feel good now. Like, I feel like sick right now.
What's up?
And then I watched it again. I watched it again and again and again. And now it's like a sick day movie. I just turn that movie on and I just have a blast.
That's a good sick day movie.
I just love it. It just makes me so happy.
Nice.
I think it's shot so well. The music choices are great. Performances are great. Lauren Bracco, to me, is honestly probably the star of the show. Such a layered performance that she brings. And she contrasts the other guys so well. I don't know. It's just one that when I rewatched it, I don't remember the time my watches of this aren't as scattered as some other things that I like a lot. I think I watched it a couple years before we rewatched it. We watched it on the big screen. And then the whole time I was like, is that magic gonna wear? And it just doesn't. It never wears for me.
Holds up.
It feels great.
And close to how many times you've seen it. That was my second time. Because I also watched it in high school and I didn't like it. I respected it as much as you can at that age. I think it was more like, yeah, this is great. I don't like it. I can kind of say like, yeah, this is one of those big movies. And I feel like crap. And I think that's why I didn't watch it for so long. It's like, I feel sick. And it is how they portray the drug use, which that's good that he did that because drugs are not good.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad.
Someone should have told me that sooner.
And I think it wasn't the actual use, it was how he looked in that last scene.
The eyes when the helicopter's
the eyes,
tailing him.
He's sweating, he's all pale. He looks awful.
That zoom back, like when he whips up.
Yeah. Oh man, so I put it off for years, and I actually the Goodfellas Casino debate is always where Goodfellas is the better movie, but I have not rewatched Casino since I'd only seen both of them once, but I remember liking Casino a lot more.
Same.
It is a lot. I think what hurts it is it's a lot longer and it's not as tight.
Mm-hmm. Casino or
Casino?
Okay,
Casino's almost. Is it over 3 hours?
It might be.
It's a long one.
Very close to 3 hours.
He likes making long movies.
That one, part of my enjoyment of it is just watching it as not really a kid, but with my parents or with my dad or whatever. So a lot of that is looked through nostalgia. So
for me, it was just, I think I was in college by then, and a professor said, hey, you should watch Casino.
Hey, you should watch this.
Hey.
It was Robert De Niro.
He just said, he made me a list for spring break to watch because I was just trying to watch more stuff because I'd really gotten into watching movies in high school. He's like, here's a list. Have you seen any of these? I don't think I'd seen any. It was only 10. And on there was Casino. And he's just like, he really had one of his things he liked was watching people run hotels and businesses in movies and TV shows. He's the one who told me I should watch Magic City, that Star show that no one watched. And it's actually okay. It got canceled before it could really develop more than it was. But he said it's fun to watch Jeffrey Dean Morgan run a hotel amongst all the other storylines. Because Grand Budapest had come out around that time too. And I remember him saying like he liked watching how the hotel was run as like a side part to the rest of the movie.
What was the show where James Caan basically did that?
James Caan? I have no idea.
It's like Vegas or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
He's got Josh Duhamel or something.
Something. I know what you're talking about. So for Casino, I think that's why it's Goodfellas is covering 3 decades of different things. Yes, I just read that. That says 3 decades right there.
It says 3 decades of being a mobster or whatever.
Yeah, whereas Casino, I think it surrounds that one establishment and how it's run. I think like the scene of the guys cheating was always, I'll say, fun. I mean, one guy gets his hand whacked by a hammer.
Shouldn't have cheated.
So let me ask you this. One of the things you and I talk about a lot, and
our feelings.
Yes. But and I know this is a completely separate genre of movie. One of the things that you and I talk about for like autobiographical pieces is that they don't focus on like a narrow enough scope. So why
you just mean biopic? You said autobiographical.
Did I?
Yes.
Yes.
You just mean a biopic. Okay.
I meant a biopic.
That'd be weird to make a movie about your own life story.
James Cameron would do it.
Herzog.
Oh yeah, he would.
Anyway, what makes this different?
What makes this watch through different?
What makes this different that it's not really narrowly focused?
You're saying as compared to a biopic?
Like, so if you're talking about this is like 30 years, and I'm sorry if this is off topic because it kind of is, but if this is like 30 years and in a biopic someone covers an event that happens in 30 years of... You're
saying why are we covering 30 years instead of one moment?
No. So he's saying you usually respond better to biopics that are a more narrow scope. Love and Mercy. That's what we watched recently, or I watched recently. We talked about. How does this still work for you with it being covered that much of time, being 3 decades long? How does that still?
Because it kind of works in the same ish way of a biopic.
It's probably again, maybe I don't know if I know how to put this in words well. Maybe it comes down to execution. He knows how to cover it without rushing through things, covering enough of it while staying focused on the characters that are important. Maybe.
Okay. I suppose there is some.
I suppose there is biopics where it's like birth/childhood, rise, fall.
But this is kind of like that.
He starts childhood, and
you know what I'm saying. Like,
there's a time.
They do that But then this doesn't
but
feel
it's
like it's about
5
only
years?
him. Maybe it's that.
From when he's...
It's more the effects of
Is it?
what happened to him, I feel like. Is a good
It
way
says it, I think.
Yeah,
I
you
think
bring
it's
up an
10 years.
interesting point. 'Cause I'm trying to put it into words, and I
Well,
don't
because
know what it is.
you think about
Directed
it,
by
like...
Martin Scorsese.
I know it's a bad comparison because this is such a bad movie, but like the theory of everything is like roughly the same amount of years.
But that one's not fun.
It's a very, very
it was a
different
bad
vibe.
comparison.
It's a very different vibe.
It's the one I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
right
you're bringing
now.
up an interesting conversation because it is true. It's like maybe because he's not a public figure in the same way.
You didn't know Henry Hill before watching Goodfellas.
Maybe
generally.
that's it.
Is when you shine a spotlight on someone that's a little more unknown.
Versus
So
you do Freddie
so-
Mercury.
Oh, you had that. That's
Maybe it's also the focus isn't on him as a person. It's more about focusing on a life that he lived, if that makes sense.
And
He's
also,
talking about how the mob worked and his role in it.
Also,
instead
the
of it being
effects-
like about him.
I was gonna try to say, and also the effects of that kind of lifestyle on him, I think, is kind of where it also lies. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe the
I
main
wasn't-
focus is the mob.
I wasn't like
not
trying to trap
Henry
you or
Hill.
anything. I was just kind of
Gotcha.
curious. Like
Yeah,
that's.
I know,
I wasn't
I-
trying to do
Yeah,
that.
that's interesting. But anyway, before we get too carried away, let's move on to the next pick.
Is that
Were we
you,
done?
Jared?
We were
Wait,
done.
Do,
though?
do you guys have anything else you wanted to
Just
mention?
making sure we
Yeah.
got off onto that tangent.
But okay, yeah. So Jared, what is your favorite?
So I like the original Joker. The jokester. The King of Comedy, which before 2019, no one had heard of it. And I had seen it a couple times and loved it. And now everyone knows what it is. So it's hard to just say, yeah, The King of Comedy was always my favorite Scorsese movie.
Oh, you saw it first.
I literally did.
Yeah.
I literally watched
I think
it.
the only other person that saw him besides him is Scorsese.
Yeah.
He said, "Hey, Jareve, I got this motion picture that I just made."
Sounds
In
just like him, too.
1982.
Now, if me and Martin Scorsese were in a room together, we talk about what kind of inhaler we use because we're both asthmatic. I really like to use the big blue ones, the ones that make you look like you're playing a trumpet. And I'd just say, like, yeah, I got the red one because, it's just kind of cool. He's like, really, that's fascinating. Can I hold it? I'd be like, yeah, there you go, Marty. Might just be like, huh, that's pretty cool.
Anyone animators out there?
Yeah, someone want to make that?
That would be
into
fantastic
A
to
thing
see.
for us.
I always liked how he says opportunity. He goes, opportunity.
I love that man's voice. I just know, but the way he talks, it just makes me happy.
I just want to get one of those baby carriers, put him in it, and just sling it to my back, and just take
What's he
him
doing all day?
everywhere. So, Marty,
Is he that short?
He's pretty short.
he's like, what,
He's
5'2", 5'3"?
Whoa, he's that? Really? I didn't realize that.
Short king.
Yeah, Short King, obviously. Woo!
Yeah, so the King of Comedy. It's basically Robert De Niro bugs Jerry Lewis
Period. End of sentence.
for 109 minutes. Sorry, 105 minutes. You got to put the monologue in it. So you didn't watch this.
I did not.
So
make
we're
it
just
into
gonna.
it.
I'm just gonna spoil it.
Yes.
It's
We gotta talk
basically
about it.
it's basically looking at how people obsess over celebrity culture. Jerry Lewis plays Jerry is Langford, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Jerry Langford, who hosts his own variety show, after his own namesake. And the poor guy just wants to be left alone. As you do. He just wants privacy.
Of course.
And Robert De Niro plays Rupert Pupkin,
It's a hell of a
who
name.
is an aspiring comedian who
The king
basically
of comedy,
stalks
as it were.
him.
Yeah, okay.
He's just and it all starts with he gets into a taxi with him at the beginning. It was a taxi or it was a limo.
It was the limo.
I just
thing.
watched it and
It was like a limo.
I watched it this morning and I can't.
he basically
remember.
and he has a conversation. Of course, Jerry just tries to get rid of him, saying, "Just call my secretary, right?
Sure,
and
of
have
course.
her give you the tape." And it just spirals into he just is bugging him. He's going in to like the next day. He goes and says, "Oh yeah, Jerry and I talked," because he's just obsessed with this guy.
See, but the interesting thing is that the bridge between those two scenes is that delusion that he has where he's going to take over the show, which is interesting because it sets up this thing where you're not really sure what in the movie is. I don't want to say real, but like
That's exactly what
what's in
Scorsese
his
said
head and
about
what's
it.
not.
He didn't want to differentiate. He wanted you to kind of have to
And it just
decipher
so
that
like
yourself.
I don't know. Is the scene with Rita in the restaurant, is that a real or is it a delusion?
You'd think it'd be a delusion, but then when she like laughs at him about putting his own name in his autograph book, that feels a little bit too much because if it's his delusion, he wouldn't make fun of himself like that. And
then I guess when she goes to Jerry Langford's house. That's a rough scene to watch.
There are so many moments, Dickey, in this movie where it's similar like The Office cringe, where they just keep pushing and poking to the point where you're like, stop. It's like Jerry straight up says, please get out of my house. And then he's like, no, see, it's fine. We're already here. He's like, get out. And he's like, she's like, Rupert, he asked us to leave. No, he didn't. No, he's not. Jerry, you're not asking us to leave.
She does not understand.
She got it right away.
The strings that were pulled at first. And it's like, it's like a trap.
One that just like makes you just feel like incredibly uncomfortable, and it's just really effective.
And the delusion part Jake was talking about is he has cutouts of Jerry and like Liza Minnelli in his basement that he talks to on like his own made up set.
Yeah, like a show, like he's interviewing.
It was to the point where I thought at the end they were going to physically show that it was a delusion. That he got out and with the book and everything. I thought they were gonna like cut and like
he'd be in Arkham Asylum.
He'd be in like a jail cell
and dance down the hallway, and it's just the end.
Or don't forget, you have to tell that his girlfriend the entire time was not real.
I did keep expecting something like that to happen because it feels like the Joker felt.
The talk show thing, De Niro's in both.
I mean, same movie, but
the way that
Joker is worse.
Yeah. The way that you're saying that
comedy is much better.
It never directly spelled out what's real and not real.
It does spell out what's real and not real. It does it so quickly that it just kind of flows together.
It doesn't do a whole like 5 to 10 minute sequence about how this girl for the entire time was fake.
Yeah. They didn't do that.
Yeah, because we didn't need that.
If you want to hear this ending, because the ending, this was the third time I saw it. Mm-hmm. The first time I watched it, made me sick.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get that from it.
Because
they've been with psycho.
What?
That's a note for a whole different time.
I'm laughing talking. After he goes to his house and gets thrown out, basically. Mm-hmm. There's this other girl named Masha, I believe.
Yeah. Masha
Check on that. Nope.
As I referred to her as I was watching Zendaya before Zendaya was cool. You know why I say that?
No.
Her face looks like it to me. And the way she's wearing the dress with the sport coat over.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like a Euphoria kind of look.
Yeah.
So she's even worse obsessed. She has like sexual fantasies we could probably guess about Jerry. Like it's even more unhealthy. They kidnap him. They kidnap him. They bring him to his house. They hold a gun to him.
Why was I laughing during that scene with the candles? I was laughing.
They basically at gunpoint
she has him taped to the chair and
tell him they have him call his producer to put Rupert on the show.
Sure.
It's working.
You have a blank one.
Yeah, and they have cue cards, and it's all. And it basically comes down to he gets on the show. Jerry is taped to a chair, and Masha's gonna do her thing. And then Jerry gets out of it, but Rupert goes on the show, and we don't see the monologue at first, and of course they're gonna arrest him. But he says one more thing. He goes to the bar where this girl that he was with, that, of course, I would dump him after that.
Yeah.
And he turns on the TV. We see the full monologue. And he's actually funny.
Huh.
This whole movie builds to these stupid jokes, as you said. What you were just about to say something.
Oh, I was just, I'm laughing more now in hindsight than I was as I was watching it. It's one of those things. It's like it shouldn't be funny.
No,
it's not funny. Like this
poor guy just wants to be left alone, and this obsessive fan basically gets onto his show by kidnapping him.
And then
that's so ridiculous. You can see that funny. I can see how that would be funny.
Jerry gets out of the tape and he fires the gun and it's like foam or something.
It's like a little dart gun, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not a real.
Yeah, it's shooting these little plastic.
And then he
pieces.
runs out and chases him down the street.
He breaks it, right? Doesn't he just break it? This is a toy gun.
Oh my!
So he gets out of there and he sees Rupert was on the show. Rupert goes to prison, writes a book, and when he gets out, he becomes a national sensation and has his own variety show. It worked, and the movie ended the first time. I watched it on YouTube.
Oh my God!
Someone gave me the link. Like I posted something, and one guy's like, "Oh, a friend, high school friend." He's like, "There you go." Oh, I was watching it, and I felt sick to my stomach. I'm like, I like the movie, but man, I don't feel good about this. And then I watched it like 2 years later with a friend of mine, and we were laughing the whole time. And by the end, I'm like, and he's like, "No, it worked. He somehow." It's just and it's so relevant.
I was gonna say that sounds very.
What's the thing we came up with? Parasocial parasite. So they just latch on to these celebrities like they're some kind of deity.
It's aged very well. In that
regard.
I
was gonna say that sounds really
so well. They remade it.
And they took the wrong lessons away from remaking it, and they made it about a funny clown. But that was weird. I don't know why it was.
That was a funny clown.
I was laughing the whole time.
I mean,
he was too.
Basically him.
One thing I really appreciated about this was it seems like it was a very different role for Robert De Niro.
Really
from at least what I've seen of his. Most of what I've seen, he's either been a gangster or
he's a tough guy.
An old man that didn't like Ben Stiller.
Yeah, maybe don't talk about his newer roles.
His newer roles are all right, just not all of them.
Yeah, I would say I can just think like Dirty Grandpa. You just. That's the one I went to.
I never saw it.
Wow, this whole screen just went blue.
He's doing a lot of grandpa things right now. Warwick Grandpa, Dirty Grandpa.
Go figure. He must be a grandpa.
I'm sure he is a grandfather.
Grandchildren too.
Oh yeah.
That guy got him around. I think that might be why you mentioned it. It's 1982, but it feels like a 70s film. I think that kind of ties in with De Niro because I feel like his roles were a lot more eclectic in the 70s. Even in like Taxi Driver, in your head you think of Taxi Driver, you think, oh, he's a tough guy, but he's not. He's like an incel. He's kind of a little freak. And then little freak. And then you juxtapose that with
Cape Fear. Oh wait, that's the 90s.
That's the tough guy look.
There's
I was gonna say The Godfather Part 2, his Vito is a very subdued character. And then you kind of keep going and it's like, yeah, he's a tough guy.
So this is completely a side note. My experience with Godfather, I don't know if Jared has told you.
I think I have.
Is very, very strange.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand the films as they are the films. I understand them watching them in chronological order because of a Criterion Laserdisc.
I still need to watch that. The one where they put both movies together.
I don't think it's available anywhere.
Really?
I don't know if it's a Criterion Laserdisc, but there is like the Godfather Trilogy, and it's like got the years on it.
Yep.
And it's like.
Is it not a Criterion?
I don't think it's Criterion.
Okay.
I think it was just like a random one that they did. And yeah, it's.
But Drew had.
It's in like order from like starting at Vito as a kid, going through.
That would be so wild to see.
It ruins the second Godfather movie.
It does.
Watch it like that.
Yeah. Well,
it does. I will admit that.
I don't know. That's a horrible first.
I just feel like that'd be just a very interesting thing to see.
But it is the only way that I have ever seen The Godfather, so I just have
Really?
I have like no concept except for the third one, which I don't really want to admit that I've seen.
I don't know if I've actually seen the third one.
I haven't seen it.
I have no real concept for what those movies are on their own.
That's such an interesting take.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
And I love them, but I have no idea.
Can't wait for you to watch it the right way.
Yeah.
That's going to be crazy.
We should do a live watch.
This is dumb.
You're going to be like, well, I get it. This works a lot better.
Like, wait, that makes sense.
It's a parallel?
No, I got that from it.
Well, only 3 hours later.
Yeah, well.
The king of comedy.
I was gonna say, anything else you want to mention about the king of comedy, guys?
Robert De Niro is really good in that.
Yeah, and so is the other crazy lady, Masha. That's her
Sandra
name.
Bernard.
Okay, all right. So on that note, let's move on to our last very special guest. Again, thank you for joining us. Hammy, what is your pick for your favorite
It's the
Scorsese?
funniest one.
To fit with the theme of the show, if you couldn't tell from what the Godfather talk, not the Godfather, look at me. Look at me. The Goodfellas talk.
There we go.
You know, Goodfellas is like a personal favorite of mine, but if I'm going to go next up on the list, but also kind of an interesting talking point, my pick is 2016 Silence, which is a kind of a under the radar film for Scorsese. When it came out, it did not really get much attention. It's based off of a novel by, I think it's Shasuka Endo, who's a very prolific fiction writer.
Shasuku.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, guy. It was one that he was trying to make for like 20 years. He had the content for it, but he never felt like he was prepared to take on the material.
Even Cox tried to write a script around Goodfellas.
Yeah, like
right?
1990, and they like held off.
Interesting.
Because he wanted to wait till he understood it or something.
Yeah,
So, wait, you said fiction writer? Is this based on a true story?
It's historical fiction.
Okay. I didn't understand that about
from
it.
A Japanese author.
Good to know.
But it's set in 17th century Japan.
Fraud. How do you like it?
You know, I'm just looking up to my hero, Del Reeve.
You are shorter than me.
That's true. Average height. But it's set in 17th century Japan, where Christianity is outlawed. That was when the borders were closed. And 2 Jesuit priests are going into the country, which is again under lockdown, to spread their belief. Because Christianity had kind of gotten into the country, but they're persecuted there. And it's a very, if you saw last week's episode, you're sensing a theme. It's a very heavy film. It's, you know, silence is in reference to the silence of God, in which they're trapped essentially on this island where they're being tortured for being Christian, and they have to either suffer that torture or not even give up their faith, like condemn their faith.
Okay.
And it's a film that when I saw it, I wanted to see it just because it was Scorsese, and I admired Scorsese. And I'm not a very spiritual or faithful person myself. And I remember when I saw it, it just gutted me. I just felt, I don't even know how to describe how I felt. It's just a swarm of emotion, of sadness, sympathy, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
I remember when it first came out, like the reviews I were hearing were a little more iffy, and I was kind of surprised.
A little more lukewarm.
Yeah.
It's because it's very different. We kind of adjusted when we talked about Shutter Island, the 2010s era post Hugo, because that was the transition period. You know, from Wolf of Wall Street, you have 3 films. You have Wolf of Wall Street, you have Silence, and you have The Irishman. They're very different than the rest of his filmography.
Didn't one of you also say that this was like a part of a religious trilogy that he did?
It's like an unofficial faith trilogy that he has, because it's Last Temptation of Christ, Kundun, and then Silence. Which, I guess we're missing the 2000s, but they're all in different decades too.
Yeah. 80s, 90s, 2010s.
Which Scorsese, a lot of his films tie into faith in more subtle ways. Obviously, Last Temptation of Christ and Kundun notwithstanding, because they are deliberately faith movies. But you know, he grew up under the Catholic Church. He was, I think, set to be like a priest. Like he was
in the clergy.
Yeah, completely. And then it's just not what ended up going there. And so I think this is just a film that pulled a lot out of him, and you can feel it. It's very much a passion project. He was not cutting corners to fit any sort of niche that he had built. He was just making a movie that he felt he needed to make, and you can feel it when you're watching it. It's not like anything else he's made. And I think it's probably his best made film.
That's super interesting. That I know I do really, really want to see it. I really wish I had the time to, because like I feel like, again, just because I remember when this came out, and I remember nobody went to see it. Like it made like next to no money. It
made like
lukewarm.
1.9 million in its opening weekend.
Yeah, like and I was just
probably left like, there are no gangsters in that.
Fell asleep.
and I was just thinking, it's like, wow, I'm kind of surprised.
There totally were gangsters in that. They just had swords.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question about this. So at one, because like obviously they're condemning Andrew Garfield and who was he?
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver. Oh my god.
So good in this movie.
Wait. They're condemning them?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the
What do you mean?
Well, my question was, don't they? And I could be entirely wrong. So do they end up having like question their faith like because of like everything with Japan?
That's.
Ooh.
Do you want to spoil it? I mean, because that is the movie.
That is
more or less.
Okay, well, because
they're there trying to spread their faith,
yes,
and deliver what they think is,
mm-hmm.
good to these people, and they learn progressively through it, like at the cost of what,
Really, it's just Andrew Garfield that learns it, but
we don't see, because we don't really see Adam Driver. I think it's
he doesn't
implied.
give it. You think?
Like halfway through the movie is his last scene.
I think it's implied.
Oh, I didn't know he wasn't in it as much.
He disappears. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I bring that up because I want to mention, and I don't think you guys have seen it or not, but Andrew Garfield is in a new series that came out this year on FX called Under the Banner of Heaven, where he also plays this one he plays a Mormon who going through like figuring out murder is questioning his faith. So I just think it's interesting that he played that role 2 separate times in his filmography, and he does it really well.
He's much better in this movie than anything else that he's ever been in.
Really?
Yes.
Because I love Andrew Garfield. So
this is his best performance, bar none.
This made me start to like him, because before this I did not like his acting at all.
Okay.
And then after this I was like, okay, and then I've not seen that many things I like him in.
I don't really want to say he has no one to act off of, but for a large majority of the movie, it's kind of just him. Yeah. Just him in I don't want to say a distant situation either, but he's at least somewhat separated from the situation for a lot of the movie.
Yeah. No, there's a large amount of the movie where it's more or less him on his own, at least. Definitely spiritually, which again is a main focus of the film.
Half of it, he's sitting in a cage.
Yeah, that's.
I remember pausing the movie because I had to go to the bathroom and there is 2 hours left in how
slow moving.
And I think it was at the point he got in the cage.
It is slow moving. This is my second time watching the film. I hadn't seen it in a number of years. I think it was your second.
Second, yep.
We both agree when we very casually mentioned it that it goes by a lot faster on a rewatch.
Okay.
Still not fast.
No, it's not fast.
But when you know where it's going, it flows a lot better.
I was going to say,
not that it didn't flow well.
This movie has given me. I watched it over the weekend. It's given me an existential crisis almost, because I am a Christian and I do believe that it's everybody's right to choose what faith they believe in. It does make me question: is it right for me to go and spread my belief if it's hurting someone?
Yeah,
there's
at what cost?
Yeah, it's just such a personal I don't really know how to put it to words.
Another couple years to work through. Took Marty 26 years.
If it took Marty this long to work through, it's gonna.
In high school, way over my head. It's really short. It's 200 pages, and I remember I was punk high schooler. I can read this. I watched the movie. It's a lot. I like to revisit it, but.
Interesting. I would be really curious as to how this compares to the actual book that it was based on.
We did mention also that he doesn't have someone to act off, but there is the guy plays Kichiro. I cannot say that name without. Do you want to try? It's that one right there. You said
Trying to
Yusuke?
set me up to fail. Yusuke Kubozuka.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I'm not trying to set you up to fail, but I'm super bad at that. He's easily one of the best parts of that movie.
He's good.
Was it Jake? Was it you that said like? It was either you or I watched one of the behind the scenes thing on my Blu-ray where it was like Andrew, I gotta say his name again, of course. Okay, Rodriguez has to. He sees himself as kind of above them in a way because of his faith. Kind of mirrors himself, thinking he is like Jesus, when in actuality he's more like Kichijiro. I cannot say that.
Yeah.
When that ends up being closer to who he is, because you know what I'm saying. It's that scene where he looks in the reflection and sees that portrait of Jesus from the beginning, like over his face, and then he just starts laughing hysterically. You remember that was the scene that was just super eerie to you, right? Were we talking about that, or was that from the Blu-ray?
We were talking about that, and I was also talking about one of the big things here is the language barrier between the converts and the monks or the priests. And it's just like, are you, even if you assume that what you're doing, that this type of ministry is helpful to them, is saving them, are you really offering them something helpful if there is such a big gap that they don't understand what you're actually offering them, which is something Liam Neeson
look there when he looks at the sun. That is your God.
Which I don't like his character in this, because while I understand where he is, I just feel like I understand how he got to where he is. I don't know. I have so many mixed emotions. Like, the movie is beautiful, and I love that it makes me think. I just have so many mixed emotions about it.
I think that's supposed to happen, though. I think that is definitely deliberate. I think that whole scene with him in general is supposed to, it really puts you in Rodriguez, you said his name? It really puts you in his shoes, because he's in such disbelief of that as well. And he can't even, fathom the idea of being like him, and then he slowly gets that way. And I think I like that you have that interpretation where it's almost, not to necessarily project it, but like upsetting almost. If that's fair. Mm-hmm. It's a challenging work.
And it's also like what matters more, the lives of these suffering people or him stepping on the slab?
Yeah, that's
another whole thing of like, does that really mean as much if it's at the cost of this? The movie is kind of about cost and consequences.
That is another part of it that broke my heart. Like, not so much the people who are Japanese, like them, but like him specifically deciding to step on the slab, even though there was the conversation in his head between God and, which was Kieran Hines' voice, who he voiced the father at the beginning of the movie when they're in Spain. Like, even though there is that conversation kind of absolving him of any guilt of that, because it's true. It's just, I don't want to sound sacrilegious here and say it's just an image, but at some point it is kind of just a slab in the ground.
They talk about that earlier in the film too.
Yeah, like
when they were trying to give him like the cross, one of the converts, and he was just Rodriguez made a comment about how like to them it's all in the iconography, in the items, and they're not he claims that they're not realizing it's more than that.
Yeah. So
nice
through the process of this film, like you said, he kind of becomes, or like Jared said, he kind of becomes them in a way.
Yeah, there's also, because that featurette was really good. Do you have the Blu-ray?
Yeah, I watched half of it. I couldn't finish.
Yeah, it's like 24 minutes.
Yeah,
and you'd probably just gotten off of a 160-minute movie, so it's like I've been sitting here for 3 hours, and I watched it. It's like I might as well. And they bring up how, and it wasn't even something I thought I interpreted, like when they say, I go, kind of how his faith doesn't even really strengthen until after he has stepped and kind of been pushed into silence himself. Like he can't be outwardly expressive, so it kind of makes him forced to have that stronger bond. And I didn't think about that, because the when that happens, I thought that was the end. There's like 25 minutes after that, and it's just that slow downward progression.
That is a good.
Yeah,
it is a good falling act.
That was, and then some people. It was the last shot was a bit divisive when it came out, and I've always been fine with it when it zooms into him being burned.
That's just
he's already dead, Dickey.
He dies of natural causes.
As an old man, he ended up getting married. They forced him to.
Mm-hmm.
Long, sad.
I felt like that. I was okay with it because I felt like it was the point of the movie.
He has the cross from the beginning of the movie that they gave him was in his hand.
He never let go. It's very
poetic.
I was about to say that sounds like a very poetic way to end the. Well, I was about to say that, and you said it first. Funny. Like that was literally about to come out of my mouth.
It was just kind of something that, and it might be me coming from a faith background that makes me have this assumption, but it was just kind of something that I assumed as we were going through the falling action, like because you hear the voice of God having that conversation with him or the Father or whatever, and then he steps on the slab, and then the falling action. It just kind of something I assumed, like he doesn't let go of that. Like when you're that integrated with your faith, that's not something you so easily let go of. Like not for that, anyways, but.
Even Liam Neeson's character. Remember that one line he drops. So it's ambiguous, but remember he says, "Our Lord," and Andrew Garfield goes, "Our Lord." And did you just say it? And doesn't he say something like, "I don't know," or something as he walks away?
Like
and it's like it's not saying if he still believes it, but it's kind of hinting at like he might. It's just kind of a cool little.
What's interesting now, looking back at it, is like I forget. When they when they take away the first four, when the samurais take away the first four,
you talk about the sea,
the part right before that, when they're being led. No, when they're being led away or when they're starting to go away, they go by Andrew Garfield and they're talking to him like, "What do we do? What do we do? Do we stop? What do we do if they ask us to denounce us?" And he goes. And Andrew Garfield himself says, "You trample. You save your life. You trample."
Adam Driver is the one who was like, "What are you saying?"
It's interesting that they would admit the point of the movie that early and have the main character do it, and then have him go through his own progression of doing that.
If they do it, he says trample, but when it comes to him, he just keeps holding out because he sees himself differently.
And one of the things that we kind of alluded to in the beginning with the Adam Driver character, they do quite a back and forth throughout where, at first they're all both full steam ahead, and then Adam Driver starts to question and Garfield pulls him back, and then Garfield starts to question, Driver pulls him back, and then there's that scene, that's right before they split up. And so you already see that there's the turbulence between them. And then we don't see Driver for a good length of the film. And you see him right at the end where from the distance is the first time we see him again. They don't ever reconnect. And that's the part where they're about to tie up these people and throw them in the water to drown them. Again, really not a very fun scene, to put it lightly. And there he's like, take me instead. Spare them. And I think that is his own absolution. Him kind of dealing with that in his own ways. We just don't get to see it.
Okay.
I don't think it's him.
He's martyred.
Yeah. He's martyred versus Garfield has the silence route. But I think they both kind of come to their own conclusions being on the island.
Do we need to talk about the other ocean scene?
Other ocean scene. Oh.
Do we need to talk about that? Do we need to at least acknowledge it?
I think we do, because it's... Oh.
Let's let Hammy do it.
By all means.
Basically, Dickey, because we haven't seen it. They trample the four that they take at the beginning of the summer. They trample, and that's not good enough. So they have them. They spit on a crucifix, and then they have to.
If I recall correctly, it's the old guy, the
actual one who's
the old guy, and then I don't remember specifically who the other two were. But then there's Kimichiro.
No, it's
Kichijiro.
Kichijiro.
Kichijiro, it's not funny, but he has such a funny role in this story. He illustrates that that I don't understand this faith that I have role that they talk about in the latter half. And so I don't remember what he did exactly to get out of what happens to the next three.
He spit.
And then said
the other two did. The other two, you're right.
They
the
all
other three
didn't.
didn't.
They said that's not good enough. Spit on the crucifix.
And then say the thing.
And then he, which we'll refrain from saying.
Yeah.
And he does it.
And then scampers
with
away.
very little question. I won't say no question because I think there is a bit of hesitation, but he does it, and they're like, "Okay, go," like a dog. And then the other three, they hold strong.
They're basically tied to crosses that are stuck at like just off the beach in the ocean.
Yeah,
and the tide comes in and just hits
it's
them
just
over and over until they die. And they said the last guy took like 3 days.
Takes forever.
I want to say that sounds like it would be very slow and painful.
And they were talking about. I think it was Thelma Schoonmaker. Yes.
Shoemaker.
I think they said in the feature Schoon. Whatever it is. She was saying like she was editing and she just had to sit back and like appreciate the beauty of this horrendous scene where they're burning the bodies after their she's just, this is wide shot. He said he didn't do any like close-up stuff. There's a closer-up shot in there, but he didn't do like any, it's just everything's kept wide. And it's when they're putting they burn the body so they can't use even have the bones for a real burial, Christian burial.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie, he even Garfield's writing a letter to the Kieran Hines character at the end that he'll never read. And it's that there's so much water in his body, it went up in smoke first, right? And you see it going up in smoke. It's just this big wide shot at night. It's a beautifully shot movie. And
didn't this get nominations?
That was the only one.
Nomination and it lost.
It's Rodrigo Prieto.
Yeah,
Prieto.
and he
I
also
remember
did Wolf
that.
of Wall Street and The Irishman.
Really? So he did all of his later stuff.
Yeah. Oh, he's done some Inarritu stuff too.
Okay.
And Brokeback Mountain, Argo.
Ooh, lovely.
Passengers and 8 Mile.
Wow, that's quite a resume he's got there. Huh.
But
yeah, so
he seems to be the main collaborator, at least in this
era.
Scorsese era. Which I think that there's also a lot of ties to this with the other films. Wolf of Wall Street obviously is a little more, it has its own ethos, but especially Irishman.
I want to say Irishman feels like it's like looking back on like all that experience,
especially when we talk about the falling action being pretty lengthy, and just kind of soaking in, the events of the film.
I feel like as Scorsese's getting older, like he's like taking his time more, like with like that.
It's more mature.
Yeah, it really feels reflective. That's the good word.
What did I say when we got out of The Irishman? This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
Because was it you, Jake, or someone else that said they were confused about the 40-minute falling action of The Irishman?
Confused?
Might have been Russo.
Might have been. Just someone talked to me like, I like the movie, I really do, but like after the Hoffa thing happens, it's just falling action, like, and it's just forever. I'm like, yeah, that's the movie. It's
that wasn't me.
Okay,
it must have been.
It's just the slow, just that's the way it makes you think about the way, like you said. It's just that.
That falling action is one of the most powerful scenes in the movie.
At the bank
with the kid, yeah.
I just want to talk that part, and of course Bill Bufalino. Who got him?
Yeah,
no one. He's old. Who are you protecting? You're the only one left.
That was almost my pick.
I know that's what I heard, that you were between that one and Silence.
That was a toss-up.
It's nice to know that a director like this has so many big works and many of them, great, with great conversations that you can really pick almost any of the movies.
There is one shot in Silence I did want to talk about. the one in the cage, with basically it's moving back and forth, and you watch the converts get led in, they trample, and then Kichijiro is there again because he's always there apparently, and he does whatever again, and they let him go because they know he'll just come back. And it's this perspective where it's all within this cage, and it's all one, like, it's not like one shot, but it's like it's blocked off. Like, it's like, I want to compare it to the other movie that that I want to compare it to, but you've not seen it, and I don't want to ruin that for you.
Which one?
Yep.
The Pianist.
But we're not going to say what.
It's just beautiful.
That's a gut-wrenching scene.
Doesn't the decapitation happen like in that scene?
It's in that scene.
Yeah.
It's after they've trampled, right? And they're leading back up and stops him.
He's like screaming in the cage. He's by himself. He's separated from everyone else. And he's like screaming at them to trample, to save themselves in that moment. And then right when he thinks, okay, they're safe, it's this really, and very, again, we talk about it when we talk about The Irishman, how it's this scene where there's someone standing there, and very quickly, one of the guards goes up, just decapitates him. It's very locked down. It's not flashy. It ends almost immediately.
To be honest, I didn't even know he was decapitated until I saw his head on there.
It's kind of blinking in the
I thought he just cut him across
which
here.
Is much like the character, the perspective we're seeing. And then, it's a full breakdown from there. And there's no, I hate to say it like this because in this film it doesn't make as much sense, but I'm going to use the same verbiage. There's no like glory in the shot composition of it all. There's no romance.
It's like just matter of fact.
It's just far away. It's matter of fact. And it's just, it's one of those things where you're feeling the film and you get it. And then that moment happens and it kind of really paints the picture like, okay, no, like this is bad.
This is doom and gloom. This is not ending well. Yeah.
And it hurts. It's a painful scene.
All right. Well, you guys have anything else you want to mention?
I think I mentioned everything I needed to. You should watch it.
Watch the movie.
Whenever you actually want to try.
I'm well aware. I do really want. Like I said, I don't have a lot of time, but I really want to get into it.
One of the best directors of all time.
Yes, he is. Absolutely is. So, for all of you guys, thanks for listening to this awesome long episode. And I think we're going to again have our guest of honor lead off where you can find us online.
Follow on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the super mega hilarious, always funny. Be ready for a really cool silence meme.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's going to be so funny on the TikTok, the Slate Funny TikTok. Also be sure to listen to and download the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and YouTube.
Yes.
Please like, subscribe, and ring our bell.
Absolutely. So thank you for everybody so much for listening to today's episode. Stay tuned for more awesome content coming your way up soon. So from all of us here at Off Slate Media, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.